Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to talk about food spoilage. In this video, we'll be talking about what are perishable foods, what are non-perishable foods, and what are semi-perishable foods, along with the science of the food spoilage and the various types of food spoilage, such as the chemical, microbiological, and physical food spoilage. Okay, so let's first start with the definition of food spoilage. Food spoilage is defined as a process in which the physical and chemical properties of the food change and the food become unfit for the human consumption. Okay, so food spoilage is a process in which the attributes of the food, such as the physical attributes and the chemical attributes of the food, they change and the food deteriorates and becomes unfit for the consumption by the humans. Food spoilage is an unpleasant appearance, smell, and bad taste of the food which is not favorable for the human consumption. And it is mainly caused by different types of microbes such as bacteria, fungus, yeast, etc. Okay, so what is food deterioration and how to control it? So, food is considered spoiled when there is undesirable changes in the color, flavor, odor, or texture. Okay, so how can we say that a food is spoiled? When we see that there is an undesirable change in the color of the food or in the flavor of the food, or if there is any kind of bad odor which is coming from the food, then we can understand that okay, now the food is deteriorated or it is not fit for the human consumption. So the onset of food spoilage is rather indefinite. This statement means that the onset of food spoilage is not a rapid process, or it is not a process that can be easily detected. It is a gradual process which occurs slowly, and it may occur because of a number of factors such as the poor sanitation, enzymatic or chemical reactions, improper temperature controls, or the microbial growth or physical abuse that might have occurred. So all these factors underline the food spoilage that might have occurred. Okay, so foods are described as spoiled if the organoleptic changes make them unacceptable to the consumers. Okay, so if you are a consumer and if you are given a rotten apple, which you can easily see from the visual appearance that okay, it is not looking good because what actually an apple look, it is not similar to that. So this is how the organoleptic changes in the food may be visual appearance or off odor or anything that makes the food unacceptable to the consumer. And here we say that okay, the food is now said to be spoiled. Okay, so these organoleptic characteristics may include the changes in appearance, the development of off odors, or the slime formation, changes in the taste, or any other characteristics which make the food undesirable for consumption by the consumers. Okay, now sorting the foods according to how easily they can be spoiled. On this basis, the foods can be divided into three types. The very first one is stable or non-perishable foods. These are those foods that can be stored for very long period of time. This is because they have very low moisture content and they have higher shelf life. Okay, so we keep these kind of foods in this category of non-perishable products. Okay, they can not be spoiled unless and until they are handled carelessly. The examples of such non-perishable foods include sugar, flour, and dry beans, etc. Now, coming to the semi-perishable food. These are the foods which if properly handled can be stored for a fairly longer period. Okay, they can be stored for longer time than the perishable foods, but in comparison to non-perishable foods, they have a fairly short duration. Okay, so if we talk about all these three categories, then the perishable foods, they have the very less time period. They can be for very less time period they can be stored. Then comes the semi-perishable foods with a higher shelf life. Then the most highest shelf life is of the non-perishable foods. Okay, so the food product that comes under the semi-perishable food categories are the potatoes, onions, garlics, etc. Coming to the perishable foods products. Perishable foods are those foods which are of daily consumptions. They contain very high amount of moisture content such as the milk, meat, paneer, etc. Okay, so they can be kept for very short duration, and unless and until special methods or techniques of preservation have been applied, they cannot be stored for the longer duration of times. Okay, now, coming to the signs of spoilage, how can we detect that whether our food is spoiled or not? Okay, so there are several attributes which helps us to identify that okay, your food has been spoiled. So let's see each one of them one by one. The first one is odor. Okay, odor refers to the smell Off odors are the smells that are produced when the bacteria break down the protein in food. Okay. This process is also referred to as putrefaction. It is one of the very important term which can come in the exams. Okay, so we need to keep this in mind that putrefaction is the term given the process in which there is off odors which are produced when the bacterial growth occurs in the food, especially in the fatty foods. Next sign is sliminess. If you detect that there is slime production in the food, then it is a sign that your food has been spoiled. And food becomes slimy as the bacterial population grows, and the molds may also form slimy whiskers. The next sign is discoloration. Certain foods become discolored by the microbial growth. Some of the molds have colored spores, and that can give a distinctive color to the food. Such as if you can see in a bread that when the bread becomes stale and when mold grows on the bread becomes blue-green in color. Okay, this is a sign that your food has been spoiled. Next sign is souring. The foods go sour in taste when certain bacteria produce acids in them. One of the most common example is that of a milk. When the milk gets sour or spoiled because of the formation of lactic acid, which is because of the growth of the microbes. Next is gas formation. Bacteria and yeast often produce gaseous byproducts that can affect the food, and it may be noticed that meat becomes spongy or packages and cans swelling or having a popping or fizz because of the gas produced by the microbial growth. All these are the signs of the food spoilage. Next, coming to the types of food spoilage. So, microbial spoilage is caused by the microorganisms and their products. Non-microbial spoilage can be caused by the foreign materials in the foodstuffs or by the enzymes that occur naturally in the food materials. The main causes of the deterioration of the foods are the first one is microorganism and the next one is enzyme. The another one is the chemical changes, which may be due to the water, heat, metal, air, or light, and the contamination by the soil, stone, insects, etc. The last one is because of the physical or mechanical damage. So if we talk about the very first one, that is the microorganism, all the fresh foods, we know that each and every surface we leave the foods. Every one of us is having a number of microbes. Same as with the fruits and vegetables. Their surface contains number of microbes, and all these microbes, they can eventually lead to the spoilage of the food. So in order to prevent the spoilage, a number of processing methods are employed to destroy these microorganisms, and packaging is done in order to prevent the decontamination, and together the processing and packaging, it helps in preventing the microbes from spoiling the products during distribution and the time of storage. Okay. Microorganisms, they may be divided into several groups. As already told, the bacteria, yeast, and molds, they are simultaneously, each one of them are responsible for the food spoilage. When food is processed correctly, then these microbial growths could be reduced to a number is that can be appropriate for the lowering down the chances of the spoilage of the food. Okay. Next is when there is a failure in processing conditions or the packaging material, then these spoilage are readily caused by the microbes. If you might have seen that if there is a faulty packaging of the food material, then the taste or the flavor of the food changes. Why it happens? Because the microbes from the surrounding environment, they get into the food product because of the faulty packaging, and they really spoil the food, and the organoleptic properties of the food changes and the food gets spoiled. So if there is a failure in the processing conditions of the packaging material, then the food could be easily spoiled by the microorganism as they grow and feed on that food product. They can result in the food in going moldy, developing an off-smell or fermenting. The different types of spoilage depends to a large extent on the nature of the food and also the acidity and the moisture content. Moisture content, acidity, all these factors are also very crucial for the amount of growth of the microbes. Okay, if there is a food which is of high moisture content, then they are very they can be easily attacked by the microbes, as we know that microbes they require high water activity for their growth. Next is enzymes. Enzymes are the naturally occurring proteins that act on the foods to cause changes in the flavor, color, or texture. There are number of different enzymes, and some of them are very crucial for the spoilage that occurs in the fruits and vegetables, causing them to soften. Uh, and then some of the enzymes causes acidity of oil. Some of them causes browning of the cut fruits and loss of green colors in the vegetables. Enzymes are either destroyed by heating or they are prevented from acting by changing the acidity or water content of the food. And enzymes and microorganisms can only spoil foods if the water is present. As I've already told, that water activity or moisture content of the food is very important for the food spoilage. The enzymes and the microbes can only act if the water is present. If the water is removed, if the food is dried and the water is made unavailable, then the food spoilage is reduced to a very great extent. Next is the fresh fruits such as fruit, vegetables, and meat. They are very high water content, and these could be prevented from spoilage by the microbes by either drying or concentrating or by freezing. Okay, now removing water not only it only prevents the enzymes and microorganisms, okay, but it does not destroys them. So if the water returns, then again these can be spoiled. Okay, so during the time of thawing of the food or when the foods are dehydrated, there are chances that again these could be attacked by the microbial population. Next factor is heat. Okay, when the food are heated above the 60 degrees Celsius temperature, then most of the enzymes and microorganisms are destroyed. Okay, but it is one of the easiest method and it has been used since the ancient times in the process such as boiling, frying, baking, etc. However, the cooked food they can easily be decontaminated, okay, if it is not properly packed at as heat can also spoil packaged food because it can melt fat, it can cause a loss of texture, it can cause more rapid changes such as development of rancidity because of the movement of moisture and in the food they it can lead to spoilage. Now, next factor is light. Sunlight contains ultraviolet rays which cause rapid deterioration of some foods. In some of the food packets, or in most of them, you might have seen that is written store away from sunlight. Why it is true? Because UV can cause packaging materials to fade or to become brittle and lose their properties. Okay. Electric lights they do not have same effect because of which they can be stored readily in the room light, but the food can be stored easily in the light which are present in the room, but not in the. They should not be exposed to the sun because it contains the UV component. Next factor is air. Some foods, especially those that have a high fat content or those with delicate flavors and aromas, are susceptible to oxidation. Now, what is the meaning of the term oxidation? Attacked by air, which causes all flavors to develop, known as the rancidity. Okay, so some of the foods such as biscuits, cooking oil, dried fish, and other fatty foods, they are liable to spoilage by rancidity, and they should be kept in airtight containers. Next is contamination. Foods are often contaminated when harvested or slaughtered. At the time of harvesting they can be contaminated or they can be contaminated even though at the time of processing. Okay, and such kind of contamination occurs and in order to prevent these the packaging method is used. One of the main function of packaging is to protect the food against such kind of contamination, and it should be noted that contamination described above, like such kind of contamination are referred to as accidental contamination, which is not done willingly and it might occur of the because of the process. It might occur because of the lack, or there might be failure or in the processing operation. So because of accidental cases such kind of contamination occurs and these are referred to as accidental contamination. However, if such kind of contamination is deliberately done by the humans or in order to increase the profit, then such malpractices are referred to as adulteration. Next is the mechanical damage. Food are frequently fragile and they are easily crushed, scratched, split, or otherwise damaged during the storage and distribution. And such kind of damages, they occur by the four ways. Because of the pressure, because of the impact, such as hitting or dropping of the food, because of the vibrations or the food rubbing each other. Another main function of packaging is also to prevent the mechanical damage during the transport and the storage. The next spoilage is physical spoilage. It is the damage to the protective outer layer of the food during harvesting processing. Okay, so examples of physical spoilage include moisture migration between different components, physical separation of components, moisture loss or gain, or the stealing of bakery products, etc. The last one is the chemical spoilage. The when animals or vegetable material is removed from its natural sources, okay, the chemical changes start occurring in them. If we talk about the fruits, vegetables, or if we talk about dairy products such as meat, etc., if when they are removed from their natural source and as they are kept, the various chemical changes starts occurring in them. And the major chemical changes that occur during the processing storage of the food. They can lead to the deterioration in the sensory and organoleptic characteristics. And the main chemical changes that occur are lipid oxidation, that is the rancidity, and the enzymatic browning. So these chemical reactions, they are also responsible for the change in the color, flavor, okay, and this should be prevented in order to prevent the food from spoilage. So that was all about this topic. I hope you find the video informative. Please do like, share, and subscribe to Food Tech Section.